Hello and welcome to Shark Cut-Up CNC. Today we're going to learn how to import models into V-Carve Pro. Going to do a setup here. Single-sided, 18 inches wide, 2 inches in height. Actually, let's change this to 15.325 width. And we're going to use a thickness of 0.900. Material to the surface on the Z0 datum. The XY datum, we're going to put it in the lower left-hand corner. Say OK to that. Now we're going to go import a model. Here we have a model, and this here layout is your layout of the board that I just created in the job setup. These are the measurements of your model. These are the orientation of the model. Right now the model is in good shape. It doesn't need to be moved except to be centered inside of the board that we created. Now that was easy, but sometimes what you have to do is when you import a model, you got to flip it around in different ways to find out which is the best orientation for that particular item. I gotta put it back, and then you also have the rotation about the Z-axis. See there, we rotated it 90 degrees. We'll put it back to 0. Now we're going to position import. Here you see this shadow down below. That's the 0 plane. We want that the 0 plane right now is cutting through the object, our model. I don't want that. In fact, you can see it here too. We're going to take the slider, we're going to bring it all the way down. Now you see the model is above the Z0 plane. We don't need to create both sides. We only need to do that when you're doing two-sided items. You don't need to discard the 0 plane. And the undercuts would be anything underneath here. From this point on down, it's not going to be able to show the undercuts when we're carving it from the opposite, from this side. But on the opposite side, it'll carve it with no problem. But in this instance, we don't need to know that. All we need to do is import that model as is, and there you have it in the 3D view. The model, which I had created in another 3D model program. Now you can create that same model if you had Aspire. This is V-Carve Pro, so I had to create it in another software. Now what you need to do here is you need to go to the 2D view and take a look at it. You notice it's the outline. This is the model. There's no vectors that come over with the model. You have to create the vector boundary. So what we're going to do is we're going to highlight the model by selecting it, and we're going to put a boundary vector around the model. This is the material board. This is the model itself, the outside edges of the model itself that was created in another program. Now we're able to create toolpaths. We can go ahead and select everything, either by doing it like that, or you hold down the shift key and you select the vector, and then you select highlight the model. Now we can go over here to the roughing toolpath, and this shows you how it is situated within the material of the material board. We have 1/1000 gap above with 24/1000 below. The model thickness is 875 thousandths thick. We set up the job for 0.900, so we got plenty. In fact, it's got a little bit below there, so it's not going to hurt anything. And when the Z gap above the material looks good, and there's 0.9 thickness showing again. If you needed to change it, you don't have to go to the job setup. You can actually change it right here. If you wanted to change your XY datum, you can do that here too. Z0, here's too. So there are a lot of things here that you can change. For instance, so we're okay with that. Now we've got our roughing machining toolpath. We've selected everything. We want this to be on the selected vector. The model's been selected. We go and select our tool. In this case, I already had the tool, but I'll go ahead and select it again. We're going to use the Z level strategy for the roughing. We'll give it that name, 3D Roughing 1, which is fine. And we're going to do a calculate the toolpath. There, it's switched over to 3D view. Now, in some cases, that may not happen because in your preferences, you may not have it set up this way. You can actually turn off the 3D view from not being shown. You can just keep continuing to build on your toolpaths. It keeps you from having to keep going back and forth on a 3D view, 2D view. You create all your toolpaths first and then move on. So now we'll go close this part of it, and we're going to do a finishing toolpath using the same vectors, same model. And we have a ball nose, 250 ball nose, which is sufficient for carving out this model. We're going to use the same selected vector. We're not going to change the boundary offset. The boundary offset, it changes going outward from here or inward from here. This is what they call the boundary vector. It goes around the outside of the actual model. Okay, we'll call it 3D Finish 1, and we say calculate. And here we got it calculating it out. On the finish pass, it takes a little longer because the step over is minimal to make it nice and smooth on the inside of that model. Okay, now we can actually view our toolpaths. We're going to say preview all, and there it's actually creating the toolpaths. And of course, this may take a little while doing it this way because it's animated. I can actually turn that off by selecting that little button in the red X down there. Go to my view settings, toolpath settings, and change the toolpath quality to standard. And then preview all toolpaths and see how much faster it goes. Boom, it's done. It's not as clean because you got some rough edges there, but that's okay. And here you can see the step over of the finish pass of the ball nose on the inside of that 3D model. So there you've seen a import of a model and toolpaths applied to that model. Thank you for watching. Chart Cut Up CNC.